Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Young Men Podcast. My name is Josh Richardson, and I'm joined by my good friend, Josh Holtry, Josh Squared, today for this episode. Josh had a great idea for this episode topic, and Josh, I just kind of want to let you introduce the topic and why you think it's relevant and important.
Right. Yeah, so for this podcast, we were going to talk about finding personal meaning in your life and kind of what our thoughts are on taking kind of an intentional approach to building a life that you can call meaningful and good. So I often think about kind of this general idea of the art of living well. Kind of as we're going through life, we gain insights, we gain experiences, and like I was mentioning to you the other day, I was reminded of this quote from Seneca the Younger, who was a Stoic philosopher. He said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." So I think that encapsulates pretty well this idea of, as you're going through life, there's always more to learn. It's not just a matter of, going through, finding things that, whatever you want to call it, that, make you happy, or, just getting what you need to survive. I'm a believer that there are things that you can do to, improve your life and to, make it meaningful, and, whatever that looks like, whether it's from an objective standpoint, whether it's like a subjective meaning, and we'll get into that in a bit, but that's kind of the general theme of what I was hoping to chat about today.
How do you feel like this has potential to help other people?
I think that going through life, people will oftentimes hit a point, from what I understand. I mean, I've only talked to so many people in my life, but I think that people kind of hit a point where you take a step back and it's like, why am I even doing this? Especially like when life gets tough, it really forces you to take a step back and reconsider some things. Like growing up, it was pretty streamlined. I felt like I knew my role. I knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to do well in school. I was supposed to go to church, do my duties there, do duties in my community. It was pretty simple, and it was a good way to live. And I feel like I personally hit a time in my life where I really had to step back, and especially as like so many options became available to me, I had to step back and consider, what do I want to do with my life, and why do I want to do it? And there's the midlife crisis thing where people hit a certain point where it's like, holy cow, I've used up half my life. What have I been doing? What should I do? And it can be a stressful thing. So hopefully people can, if anyone is listening to this, hopefully they can take away just new ideas of how to approach life and put things together in a way that is meaningful to them, that they find helpful, and that helps them live a good or better life, whatever that looks like to them.
Yeah, I love that. And you explained that very well. And as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, those growing up years, streamlined, I think is the word that you used, but everything was pretty clear cut, set out what we should be doing. And then, yeah, you get to a point in your life where you're like, I have to discover for myself, what is my life's meaning? And I can't have anybody tell me else, anybody else tell me what it is now. Which I think is a point that I'm at in my life, which is why this conversation makes me nervous a little bit, because I think it's going to expose a lot of weaknesses or things that I'm still trying to figure out along the journey. But also it's a really good thing to look at your life and examine, like, where am I finding meaning? What have I learned? in what ways can I still grow? So I'm excited to talk to you about it specifically because you have had this focus on finding life's meaning for a while now, and I've, as your roommate in the past, I watched you deal with difficult things that were happening in life and search for this meaning, and it was really inspiring. And the places that you've arrived as well, I think, are really really cool. So I'm excited to dive into those things. I guess our first question kind of ties into this um, crisis situation in life that we've arrive at after we leave home, or whether it's now or midlife crisis later. But this question kind of ties into that. The question is, what role have rock bottom moments played in molding who you are and how you think now? And the inspiration for this question was J.K. Rowling's quote, where she said, I love this quote so much, but she said, rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life, which is very hopeful and beautiful take on difficult things that happen. But I was wondering if you could share some personal experiences, like how did rock bottom moments or experiences lead you to kind of this emphasis in your life of finding personal meaning?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. Like I was saying earlier, I suspect that just about everyone hits a moment in their life where they get disjointed and kind of get away from their foundations and things that they're used to, and they're forced to take a step back, and it's really tough. For me, there was a point in undergrad when this really was at the forefront of my mind, like a great deal of the time. Like I was saying earlier, it was when I was kind of coming out of that streamline where I was actually having to consider, what do I want from life, and I, was asking all kinds of questions, like, questioning, principles and things that I'd, grown up with, developed, and working through all that. It's good, and it's important for improvement, but also it's very difficult because you have a certain foundation that you're used to, and then when you kind of take that away, start re-examining things, moving things around, trying to develop a new way of living, that can be really difficult. You feel like you can feel, or I should say in my case, I felt a bit lost, and I, for me personally, like I felt a bit of a spiral. I got to a point where it's like, what's even the point of life? I can't really find anything that I can super confidently rely on as being meaningful. It made me a little bit suicidal even. And during this time, there are some things in the abstract that I knew that I wanted, and things that I could say on paper were good. Like I knew intellectually that helping others, having emotional connections, working through academics and professional achievement, exercise, that these were all things that had a very high likelihood of being, air quotes, good things, being meaningful things. But I just didn't have the confidence in that foundation anymore, because it just felt like everything had shifted. I'd taken a step back, and I didn't know how to get back in there, and it was very disjointing because I'd grown up. I guess the reason for that is I was always used to growing up and kind of having a certainty about this is the way things are, these things are good, these things are meaningful even. So like examining that and questioning things, and being able to throw arguments back and forth about why it's good or why it's not good, it kind of left a bit of disarray. So from that, and to kind of get to the to answer the actual question. From that re-examination, it was really difficult, like emotionally, mentally, for a long time, but it kind of taught me that I need to be able to, adapt to things in life, to adjust, to be able to work in that kind of gray area where I'm not totally certain, but I'm willing to go and try things out and confirm and get, experience about what is good. Like, another philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, he has a fun little quote where he says, he says something along the lines of, "Don't waste any more time arguing about what a good man should be one." And with that sentiment, I think it's important to think through these things, to kind of come to a conclusion of, okay, I feel reasonably certain about this, like not the confidence that I used to have when I was growing up, because I had more of a blind confidence, but I have a reasonable certainty about this thing. I'm going to go test it out, go try it out, and see where it takes me, and continue thinking about it, but put that into action. So to sum up all that, the questioning that led to that rock bottom moment, and kind of losing my historical foundation I had, really hard, but from that and because of that, I had to learn to just be able to work in a realm of gray area of reasonable certainty, and go and try things out and continue thinking about it and kind of being comfortable with that.
What an empowering take on rock bottom experiences. And I think out of while you were talking, I was just thinking, out of necessity, rock bottom moments are so challenging that you become desperate almost to find new meaning. And I think that's the cool thing about challenging experiences. If you want to take a positive spin on the hard things that happen in life, they just force you to try and look at things in a new way, because it's difficult to survive if you don't change your assumptions, or you're not having personal experiences, learning these new things for yourself. And it's interesting as well that people go through these crises. People go through these crises at different times, and I think one of the isolating things about hitting rock bottom is that it often feels like it's at a different time than other people's rock bottoms. So it becomes extremely isolating when you're like, oh my gosh, is no one else freaking out about these things? And then to hear people with confidence talk about things that they're doing in their life. I'm thinking especially in a religious context. I remember going to church was really difficult for me during times of like rock bottom moments, because I was re-challenging these assumptions, religious assumptions or beliefs that I'd had for so long, that had kept me grounded for so long. But at those rock bottom moments, I was uncertain of a lot of things, but other people still seemed certain. And so that was really isolating as well. But I do think it's cool that, challenging things kind of by nature of what they are and what they do to you kind of force you to look at life in a new way, and ultimately lead to learning. And regardless of how you approach those challenging circumstances, everybody is learning from them just by nature of experience. So I think that's a really cool way to look at rock bottom experiences. At their core, what would you say were the causes of your rock bottom experiences?
Yeah, just, to take my various rock bottom experiences and to kind of find a unifying theme, I'd say it was just being forced to being forced to move away from what I was comfortable and happy with. That there can be extreme things that really messes up a person's life and really throws them in disarray, or it can be just a realization that shoot, this isn't exactly what I thought it was, and now that I've come to this realization, I can't go back to that just innocent confidence that I had before in this thing. I have to rework my understanding of the world, and have to find kind of a new home base, a new intellectual or mental home that I can be comfortable in. So yeah, just that disconnect, and that being pushed away from a place of mental comfort that I think we do rely on. We naturally gravitate towards things that confirm what we think, or that suggests that what we think is correct. We turn towards people that we like, that we get along with, and even in modern times, you brought up the religious context. Back in prior centuries, if you were I don't know, if you were German, you were highly likely to be a certain religion. If you were Swedish, very likely to be a certain English, very likely, or like with even Mesoamerican religion, it was based on your area. But in kind of modern times, kind of more post-Enlightenment, it's religion is another one of these things where there's kind of a more looseness to it, where people can go and kind of select what they like more. It isn't just, well, I'm this, so therefore I'm this, and I have these practices. It's what do I like more? What fits with what's comfortable with me? And you gravitate towards that. So that's just another example of just we naturally like to have a nice foundation, a place where you could be comfortable. So when there's something that forces you to move away from that to a point where it's like, whether it's an event, whether it's a realization, whatever it is, it's very uncomfortable, and it can cause spiraling if if it gets to the point where you feel like you're deprived of something you need. I think a lot of time that can be a sense of meaning. It's like, for some reason, we as humans, a lot of the time seem to have this need for life to have some kind of meaning, and so it's tough when you don't have that. So that's my speculation.
That was beautifully explained. No, everything that you're saying just makes so much sense. And I had also written down the word disconnected. I thought was a great word to describe that feeling of a rock bottom moment, isolated, disconnected, uncertain, feeling misunderstood. I think those are all good words. And when you were talking about the innocent meaning of childhood, I think a lot of times I'm like, can I just go back to being a child? And it was just easy. It was so easy. Parents laid out beliefs for you, things that were morally good or bad, pretty easy to follow. And I know I'm speaking for myself here. I know not everyone had good childhoods, but
Yes.
just that childhood innocence that was so comfortable, and then to break from that is really challenging. Do you believe, Josh, that it's possible to return to meaning that is as comfortable and secure feeling in our adulthood as the meaning that we had as children?
It's a good question, and to put it simply, I don't know. I sure haven't.
So, yeah, I haven't either. And I guess like
I will say I think it's possible. Like, the human mind is a very adaptable thing. So I think depending on the person, I think that you can, your mind can view that, your brain can view that as a necessity, and then you adapt to that, and then you get locked into that zone of okay, this is just the way it is. So like I believe that your mind can have safety mechanisms that can cause that. I believe that maybe you just become really confident in some things that give you that same childhood confidence. But yeah, well, I think it's possible, but I don't know.
Yeah, I certainly haven't come close to that same feeling that I had as a child, but I think with experience and time, maybe the meaning just becomes deeper and it becomes more profound because it's been personally tried. But I
Yeah.
think as an adult, just part of being an adult, you always hear people say the older I get, the less I know, or the more I realize, the less I know. And I
Yes.
think that's really true. I think it's true. But I do think meaning becomes deeper and more profound, and as you have experiences that compound, maybe that just makes meaningful way more beautiful. And I don't know. I don't know. That was just a random thought
Yeah.
question that I had, but
And and uh, and that's also kind of why with today's chat, I was hoping that we'd be able to frame it in a bit of a art of living, learning tools for approaching life, because that can be a very um, depressing thought. Just you'll never know what's really going on, man. Like it's like this Rene Descartes, like I only know that I exist. I can never know anything else. But yeah, I think that what's made me more comfortable with all that in recent years has been the idea, kind of implementing an almost growth mindset mentality with it. Like, what's the other one called? Like fixed mindset. Like if you go with a fixed mindset approach, it's like, oh, if I don't know everything now, that just sucks. I suck. I'm the worst. I should know it all, and it can be very devastating. I've
that's a
definitely had
relatable.
that in the
Yeah,
past.
that
But
mindset
like
sounds familiar.
yeah, but if you have more of a growth mindset approach to life, where it's like, okay, I screwed this up. Maybe I messed something up in a specific experience, or maybe my understanding of this thing was wrong. Being able to take those failures and those misunderstandings and readapt them so that you're better going forward, and so that you're more informed, so that you implement practices in your life, so that you're living a better life. And again, it's a very amorphous thing, what a good life is, but working towards that, I think being able to do that and view it in that way, it's huge. It's made my life personally a whole lot better just to view it that way. Just I don't need to know it all, and it's okay and more importantly, it's okay if I screw up and mess up in certain ways, because now I know what to do going forward.
Right. Yeah, oh my gosh, that's huge. That's a mindset I'm still working on shifting, but I really believe, yeah, in that growth mindset. And there's just so much shame in life when you think that you ought to be chasing, or you ought to be perfect at certain things, and you don't allow yourself room to make mistakes and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I,
Yeah.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
go for it.
Oh, I was just
Sorry,
going to
go.
say that transitions well into our next question, but you go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay, they'll have to edit that out. Um, yeah, I was gonna say that I'm definitely very poor at this sometimes. Like the other day, I had a really tough day where I just felt like I was very behind on my things, like I hadn't performed very well that day. And I just got home and I just sprawled out, just laid on the ground, like just feeling bad about myself. Just give myself like some, like a mix of you suck, and then a bit of like pity. You're like, hey, it's okay, you're doing okay.
Is
So
that what the voice in your head sounds like?
yeah,
Oh, that's funny.
no, I don't know. But yeah, it's so anyway, just saying I can be a freak about it sometimes.
Yeah.
Just lying on the ground in my apartment.
Hey, but listen, what you just did, the way that you worded that experience was totally growth mindset wording because yeah, you nailed that and it shows that you've kind of changed the way that you think about difficult experiences because you said sometimes it be like that instead of saying like this always happens to me. It's like
Yeah,
no
yeah.
potential
Fortunately,
for
I'm not
growth or
always lying on my
yeah.
floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but it's definitely this mindset. Being okay with mistakes is something that I'm definitely working on as well. It's so weird where this is a totally different podcast, but where the heck does shame even come from? And it can come from so many different places, but I'm like, why is it coming this strongly in my life? And why is it so difficult to just like accept that everybody make mistakes, including me, and be okay with it and move on? But that's a whole nother
Yes.
topic.
Yeah, that's a
But I
tough
do
one.
want to, yeah, I do want to transition into this question: true or false? Happiness should be the primary goal of life. Why or why not? And I think we, in a way, have kind of touched on this, but I do want to hear your answer to this question.
Yeah, I personally think that it should not be. I I mean, for one, pragmatically, generally, if you're focusing on happiness, it means that you're not going to find it. If you're focused on, I gotta do this to make me happy. Oh, I hope this is making me happy. I think that that's not gonna it's not gonna work out for you, just from a pragmatic standpoint, but also kind of more, you know, more broad in the abstract, conceptually. I think that there's a lot more to seek out than just happiness in life, and maybe it depends on how you define happiness too, whether it's just the presence of pleasure in the absence of pain, whether it's that or whether it's a sense of fulfillment, because I think that fulfillment, for me, that's a lot broader than happiness, and it's definitely something that you should seek out, and it's something that I think you're able to find when you engage in meaningful things, and again things that you've found to be meaningful. And I don't know, it's something that I'm able to dwell on, and I'm more easily to seek things out, like, okay, this thing I feel really confident, that's a good thing. Okay, so I go and put that into action, I go try it out, and I'm proud of this thing. I'm happy that it worked out, but I think more importantly for me, I get a sense of fulfillment when I'm living in accordance with the principles that I've set up and distinguished to be good and right, and ones that I should follow. So my tentative answer is no. Happiness probably shouldn't be the primary goal of life, but that's just because there's so much to be looking for in life. There's so many things that you can find to be good, and it's like, even if you are really suffering, you're having a really hard time, and if you're able to do something for someone, and and that brings a sense of fulfillment to you. And again, like, back to the definitional thing, maybe someone will define that as happiness, but to me, at least, as a different flavor, a different kind of feeling to it. Like, for example, in Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, he talks in one portion of it about different prisoners in concentration camps that knew they were going to die, and they would take their rations. And there were some prisoners that they would take their rations, and go give it to other people that were needing it. You know, they accepted they were going to die, and they wanted to do, you know, one last thing. Their basic needs weren't met. They were starving, you know, sick, you know, obviously subject to horrible abuse, physically and emotionally in all ways, you know, just dehumanized in all these ways, but you know, they still were able to have that capacity to do something that, you know, I think most people can agree is, if anything is meaningful, you know, that's meaningful, having that, you know, charity and compassion and goodwill towards your fellow man. So
Yeah, and
I
that's an
just think
interesting example, because those prisoners probably weren't like blissfully cheerfully skipping around like
yeah,
life is
yeah.
so
Why
wonderful.
not?
What? Yeah, here you go. Whee! I'm very happy in this concentration camp. But no, there was a deeper sense of fulfillment and purpose, which I think is really interesting. And I think it is. I think one of the challenges is making happiness the thing that you chase is that the definition is so. It's there's not really one definition for happiness, and so I think fulfillment maybe is a better word. And you already pretty much said this, but there was a quote by Henry David Thoreau, who my mom shared this quote with me recently when I told her what we were going to be talking about. But he said, "Happiness is like a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it will elude you. But if you turn your attention to other things, it will come sit softly on your shoulder." Which I thought was
It's beautiful.
yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Thank you, Mama Richardson.
Yeah, thank you, Mama Richardson. I do want to make this one qualifying comment, though, because we naturally, when we are suffering, we desperately want happiness. And I'm speaking from personal experience here, but when you're at your lowest point and someone tells you that happiness is not the goal, you know, when you're at those really lows and you're suffering and you're like, okay, so is my misery and pain the goal then? Like what, you know, it can be very confusing to say that happiness isn't the goal. So obviously we're saying like everybody wants to be happy, but maybe there's more fulfillment in the understanding that not every moment of your life is going to be like blissfully happy. Maybe there's more fulfillment in finding personal meaning, like what you said, try and test things that bring personal meaning, or another word for it is values. Find things that are important values to you and live that way, and your life might not look extremely happy every second of every day, but at least there's this sense of like, I'm doing things that are meaningful, deeply meaningful, helping other people, or, you know, I don't know.
I'm really glad you said that, because that's such an important thing to remember, that, you know, even though, you know, happiness might not be the ultimate goal, it sure is a heck of a hard time functioning without at least some of it, you know.
Yes.
like that's why those folks in the camps that were able to, you know, be so altruistic, that's why it's so incredible. And so yeah, I'm really glad you said that. And it also reminds me of something else from, I think this concept too is from my main boy Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's either him or like Seneca, maybe Epictetus, I don't know. But one of them, they talk about like their you know, things that are you know, that are good, that you know, I think they would say, you know, being altruistic towards your fellow man, you know, it's a good thing, you know, it's something that you definitely should do. But there are some other things. Gosh, it's been a while since I've read this, so I'm probably botching it. But there are some other things that are desirable, you know, things that it's okay to want to have these things. Like it's okay to, you know, seek after, you know, a more, you know, healthy body, you know, to be exercising and to, you know, go after that, and to seek after, you know, food, to be, you know, well fed, and you know, comfort in general, and happiness. You know, if you determine that it's not, you know, one of the things that make life meaningful, then at the very least, it's an awesome thing to be sought after, and it's worth, you know, building a life so that you have those things. I mean, that's what I think I do. I think that I kind of have tried to learn to approach life in such a way that it makes me happy, and I'm content because of what I do, because of how I view things. So yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because yeah, happiness is, I think, if not this, you know, meaningful thing that, you know, we need to be seeking after as the ultimate end in itself, at the very least it's very good to have. So
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And I had a therapist that would always tell me when I was at pretty low points, he'd be like, is there anything that like makes you happy? Anything that you found brings you joy? And it was essentially, he was just saying like, yeah, happiness is elusive as a all the time sort of thing, but where you can get it, like bring it into your life. If there's like music that brings you joy, listen to that music. Like if there's a movie, or I don't know, books, I don't know, working out like you said. Yeah, know
probably
that
not
those
drugs, but
don't do drugs. Um, but if there are, yeah, like ultimately maybe happiness, especially in our theology, with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I'm kind of getting to the point where like I know happiness isn't going to be completely 100% of the time sort of thing until after this life. It's like not possible to have that all the time right now, at least that blissful definition of happiness. But finding and living your values and meaning, that is possible. And then finding whatever little happiness day to day that you can as well, that's also possible.
Mm-hmm.
Was that too general of a statement for our theology? I don't know. I don't even know if that's true. Happiness isn't attainable until after this life. Happiness is attainable now. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? Like, life is just hard, and so it's going to continue to be difficult at times in our lives throughout the rest of our lives. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it kind of gets back a little bit to the idea of, you know, a fixed mindset versus like a growth mindset. Like, you know, if it's, you know, purely fixed mindset, it's going to be a bit of, well, you know, what do I have now and what will I have then? Well, it sounds a lot, you know, I feel like I don't have a lot right now, but I'm going to hold on to that promise that I'll have it then. Whereas, like, if you implement more of a growth mindset principle, it's kind of, sometimes life sucks. It can get really tough, but there are things that I can do to maybe build my life in such a way that I have more happiness, and there are tools for that. But yeah, just I think viewing it in that way, it's really helpful, because it can be really discouraging to think like, gosh, I've got to wait till I die.
Yes, which, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're having this convo, because it is so helpful to voice things out loud. And even as I was saying that about like happiness isn't attainable until afterlife, and then you calling me out on growth versus fixed mindset, I'm really glad that we have people to challenge us on the way that we think about things. That definitely reflects some of my fixed mindset. Like, there are times when I'm like, death just seems like the only relief from pain in life, but that's not necessarily true. There are things that I can do now, and that doesn't mean that I still can't like hope for a better future, but it also implies I'm going to keep trying right now to find fulfillment and meaning. So yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, Josh, in your opinion, life is best lived when blank is the focus.
You know, with this one, my first thought is and this is going to be fun. Is in my opinion, life is best lived when death is the focus.
Oh, yes. Please expound.
No, because I think that if you are thinking about the fact that we're not always going to be here, I think that it does force you to kind of grapple with the questions of life, which, as we were talking about at the beginning, can be kind of the worst. It can be very, uncomfortable, but getting used to that, I think that's really important. Is getting used to grappling with it and working in that gray area. It's I don't know. I think it's very rewarding. Stephen Covey, in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the principles that he talks about is beginning with the end in mind. So, and he gives this great little thought experiment where you go to this funeral, and long story short, it's your funeral, and all the people that you've ever interacted with and important capacities are there. There are people from your religious organization, maybe, or maybe your community organization, from your family, friends, people that you worked with professionally, and it's what do you want them to say, and that's his way of kind of helping you frame that idea of how do I want to live my life. Right. But you can also think of it of what would I want to be able to say about myself at the end, and that's kind of a good place to start. It's a good thought experiment for you to start and figure out, what do I want my life to look like, and what do I think is good, what do I think is meaningful, and also, just while I'm thinking about it, as a little caveat, I don't think everything you do in life, I don't think that needs to be powerfully good or meaningful. I think that's okay to just hang out and watch TV a little bit, because it's important to have balance, But I just wanted to add that in there. But right, kind of when you have that in your mind, from time to time, that okay, I'm not always going to be here. It's a good reminder that okay, I can be doing some things differently because I only have so much time. I actually have a bronze skull that I keep on my on a table that will visually remind me to think about these things, and maybe that's a little morbid, but
no,
to each their own, right? So don't bully me for that.
No, I think people who have gone to low points, death all of a sudden becomes something that you're not afraid of, but it can become like a motivating factor, like what you said. So using the skull maybe makes other people chuckle. I think it's a great idea, though. I think that's awesome. It's like, life may be difficult, but I still only have a limited amount of time, and what am I going to do with it? I think that totally flips the script, instead of saying like, oh man, I can't wait to die, or I can't wait for all these hard things to disappear. Instead, you're saying like, man, I have an opportunity to grow, to learn, to do good things with my life, even though I have challenging things happening, and I have a very limited window to do those things in. So what am I going to do? I think that's awesome. That's really cool. And isn't that a Stoic philosophy as well? Like picturing your funeral or end of your life. Didn't Marcus Aurelius do that?
Yeah, it's the concept of memento mori. Remember you will die.
Remember you will die. That's awesome. Josh, I'm amazed you can just pull out like names and quotes and stuff like that. That's so cool.
Well, I'm sure you remember I'm still a nerd about it, but I was a major nerd about this stuff in undergrad. So
I think it's awesome. My answer to this question, in your opinion, life is best lived when blank is the focus. Initially, I wrote relationships, because I think relationships are really important, like relationship with God, relationship with other people. But then I'm like, I think a more a better answer for me would just be like understanding is uh, what makes life best lived. Because I just think education, curiosity, understanding, experience, use any of those words,
Mm-hmm.
for me is what makes life meaningful. Like I can have good relationships, but if I'm not continually learning about relationships, then they become kind of stagnant. And what makes my relationships really meaningful is that I continue to have experiences with siblings or friends, um, where one of us is going through new or challenging things, and it is an educational experience. And I just think like the
Mm-hmm.
idea of growing and learning more about life, meaning yourself, I think for me that is a huge motivator.
Yeah.
And
Though
yeah,
I will say I think that saying that the focus sorry, what is it? That life is best lived when relationships are the focus.
yeah,
I do think that you're right with that. That maybe understanding is kind of kind of qualifies that main idea that
yeah,
relationships are the focus, because I don't know I've been coming to think about that a lot more recently, just because of no matter what you believe, whether you have a theology of like we do of you know mankind being part of an eternal family, or whether you believe that we're solely that we're creatures that evolved to be social, or both of those, whatever it is, we're social animals. And I think that you're probably right that life is best lived when relationships are the focus, because I don't know, that's where I find my ultimate meaning, like you know talking with friends or family, or helping other people, or that kind of thing. And relationships is great because it can go even further than that. If you really love animals, then you can have relationships with those animals where you help them out that way. And yeah, I don't know, I think that you hit it really well with that, because all the other things that I find some meaning in, like I find a lot of meaning in taking care of myself physically, exercising, getting good sleep, and that kind of thing, and building skills. But I mean, those are ultimately just, those are good, but they're just means to an end,
right.
like, which is being able to interact with and build good relationships with other people. So I'm gonna push back on your change from your original little fill in the blank, because I think that was good.
Yeah, yeah. And I think they kind of go hand in hand. I think you're right because I think relationships being a key part of life, um, they do force you to learn and to grow. It's impossible to have a relationship with somebody without having growth be a part of that relationship. When you say like
Hmm.
any friendship or relationship you have is going to develop, um, or wax away and or deepen, or I don't know, they're constantly moving, so it's teaching you all the time. But yeah, you're right. I was talking to a friend recently, and he was just saying, like, imagine what life would be like at those low moments if you didn't have people in your life at all. If it was a completely isolated experience. And I'm like, yeah, okay. When you put it that way, relationships are the most important part of life. And yeah, I'm trying to imagine my life if I didn't have like some strong friendships or relationships with family members who supported me through difficult things. If I didn't have a relationship with God, like what would my life look like if I didn't believe that there was somebody out there who loved me, who was proud of me, who believed uh, in a better future for me? Like what would my life look like? And it would be maybe not as
Yeah.
bright and lovely.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a great way to say it. And also, maybe a thought experiment that for me kind of highlights that even a little bit more is, uh, Lauren recently, my wife, Lauren, she she told me this thing about this little thought experiment of, oh, how crazy it would be if this were true, but like with reincarnation or whatever, with that concept, or I've also heard that maybe transmigration is more correct, but pretty much the idea that you die and then you come back as someone else or something else. That idea. It's like, what if there was something going on like that, but like it also broke the bounds of time. So it's like, yes, you die, but then you become another person, but that person can be a person that's around, at the same time as you were originally alive. So temporally, it doesn't matter. And what if that's true for everyone? What if it's just the same person, that we all have, in essence, the same soul, but you die, but temporal concerns don't matter. So you're just born in different places, and so ultimately we would just be the same person, but just like alone in the universe. And
Where did Lauren get that
I don't
idea
know. I don't know. TikTok. I don't know. But no, it's like that's a kind of a scary thought, but to me. But I think the reason why it's a scary thought is because I think relationships are very valuable. Being that there be something outside of myself that's sentient that I can connect with and build something emotionally.
Yeah, I think it's worth, at least while you were talking, I was thinking, like, I need to sit down and like think about why relationships are so important in my life. I think it's just something that I take for granted, but think about things that people have done for me, and in relationships that I've built with other people, and imagine what life would be like without them. And yeah, that would be really challenging, to live a life without other people around. And nothing feels more motivating. I was talking to Connor about this recently, but nothing feels more motivating than knowing that someone has got your back, or loves you, or support you, whatever happens in your life. And that is just such a beautiful feeling, to know that you're not alone. Which was kind of transitioning. This is a good transition into the next question, but I was kind of wondering, like, what has taken you from rock bottom to finding personal meaning in your life? Like, what was it that helped you to make that transition from, I'm at a very low point, to I am searching for meaning? And my answer would be, in part, relationships. It's always been like people that have helped to pull me out of those low moments, who have helped provide in some way moments of clarity or belief or hope in my purpose, that I do have purpose and meaning, and kind of motivated me that way to keep going and trying to find it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, in a way, necessity. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but like I was saying earlier, just I think that we as humans want to feel comfortable, and and I wasn't willing to go back to kind of just a blind confidence in what I had before. So I struggled, and I adapted and learned. I was humbled a great deal by it, and kind of that necessity, but also kind of not allowing myself to kind of go into this defense mechanism of, okay, I just need to lock down what I knew before. That yearning for a new place of comfort, that's what drove me, and eventually, yeah, what I found was kind of more comfort in being able to operate in an area of more uncertainty, and also being able to appreciate people in my life more. Like, I feel like I appreciate people a lot more than I did before, and I'm really grateful for that, because people are pretty cool. a lot of the time. So yeah, probably that. Just a yearning inside me for a good way to live.
I love that. I totally agree. Okay, I'm gonna get a little personal. We've already gotten way personal, but um, what
Oh,
is your personal meaning right now?
right now, it's. I mean, a lot of it is, in my family. I mean, I I I I feel like a lot of it honestly is kind of with what I was saying earlier about, there are some things that are like a means to, what you're actually getting after. I feel like lately I found a lot of personal meaning in trying to, improve myself so that I can be better to others. Like I've tried to, be more, patient. I've specifically I've been trying to work at seeing things from other people's perspective, because, I've learned time and time again that it's very unhelpful when get into an argument with someone, and you're just trying to prove that you're right, trying to prove that they're wrong. So yeah, just, being patient, whatever that looks like when I'm interacting with other people. And I'm not getting into fights all the time, fortunately. I should probably say that. This makes me sound like I'm like really trying to, beef with people on the street, but
Just go to a bar on the weekend and you're like, all right, who's ready for a good verbal altercation?
no, but yeah, trying to work on that, trying to improve myself so that I'm more patient, so I'm more humble. You know, it's been a pretty big like building my confidence, that I feel comfortable going into situations that I wouldn't normally feel comfortable in, and try to help people out that way. So yeah, I found a lot of personal meaning and kind of building up my, I don't know, I guess positive characteristics, but and there's a long way to go, but ultimately, right, because that helps me get at those ultimate goals of trying to be there for other people and trying to live, a better life by just having a positive effect on other people in the world, and also on my family, trying to remember the part that they have, because right now I'm in my second year of law school, and it's a very busy time. The old adage is that the second year they work you to death, and that's definitely happening. So like trying to maintain that perspective and trying to still focus on my family, and despite that, those are the things and the struggles that kind of help me find meaning. Because and I will say I like the word struggle, because being able to struggle through things in life, I found that to be very good, very, very meaningful, to be working towards something. So
The struggle, the wrestle,
yes,
both
struggle
imply
is
that
good.
there's strength training involved. Um, I like your blend of like, you explained it so well, so I don't want to use words that don't fit what you were talking about, but like working on self-esteem or self-worth, or seeing the good parts of yourself, or working on yourself, blended with helping other people. And I like that those two things don't have to be completely separate. Like I can't help other people until I'm the best version of myself, but you can work on both of them simultaneously. I think it's really awesome.
Yeah.
Personal meaning for me right now they both have kind of religious uh, religious backdrops, I guess. I had an experience recently where I was just kind of, I feel like I was shown or reminded that I still had a purpose in my life or a role to play in the lives of others. So that idea has become something that's being really personally meaningful to me, which maybe sounds a little narcissistic. Like I have some role to play in the benefit of others, but
Well, well, I think, are you going to share that experience? Because I think that'll make it sound a little less narcissistic if
okay.
that's what you're worried about.
Yeah, I can share that experience. So I was diagnosed. I was given a cancer diagnosis recently, and the diagnosis was pretty bad. So um, at one point, I was having a conversation with doctors and friends, and there was a potential, looking at statistics, that my life wouldn't extend past like 5 years or something. So I had this really Marcus Aurelius type of confrontation with death, where I had lots of opportunity to think about what it would be like to die, and um, and for some reason, um, that cancer or that growth that was in my body kind of dissipated, and there's a lot of there's a lot of details in that story that I'm not sharing, but some people call it miraculous. Some would say, well, it probably wasn't even cancer in the first place. But I literally had like a port in my chest and was about to start chemotherapy. The doctors kind of held off last minute because they're like, something doesn't look exactly right. But anyways, regardless, I had this confrontation with death, and then this challenge kind of disappeared miraculously, because it doesn't for most people. So I interpreted that event as, if I'm not dead or I'm not going to die, then obviously there's something left that I have to do in my life. Because I do believe that there is a God who is aware of us. I believe that He believes in our abilities to have an influence, positive influence on other people. So I just interpreted that like, if I'm not dead, then I still have some role to play in this life. And I'd like to think that it has something to do with helping other people. So that has become personally meaningful for me. But in tandem with that as well, I would say I have a lot of things to learn. And the reason why I talked about death before is something that I look forward to, is because in that moment where I came to accept that cancer diagnosis, and I was like looking at death pretty face to face, I kind of got excited because I believe in life after, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like all of these hard things that I've been dealing with in life before, maybe this is the end, like it's my time to go. And which maybe sounds morbid to other people, but I mean, if you're in the middle of difficult challenges, that I think is a pretty normal thought that people have sometimes. Um, but because that situation didn't happen where I didn't die, I interpreted that as well as like I still have things to learn here. So I guess my personal meaning is twofold. I'm alive in here because I still have things to learn, and I'm alive in here because I still have a role to play. Whatever that role is, I don't know if it's other people or I don't know exactly, but those two things really motivate me. And they're both very religious for me. So
Yeah,
those were not conclusions that I would have maybe come to on my own without some divine intervention in my life.
yeah. Well, hey, thank you for sharing that. I mean, yeah, we were talking about this, recently, and I find a lot of inspiration from what you're able to draw from that, and and it was yeah, it was really hard, for me too, like Noah, when I first heard that you had cancer, because you're one of my best friends, man. So, and yeah, I definitely believe that you have a lot to do still. You got a lot of great qualities, so I'm glad that you're able to interpret it that way and take away that meaning from it. Because yeah, I for one am very grateful that God's going to be able to put you to use for for a while still.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that, Josh. Thank you. I felt one of the cool things about that experience is just the way that it drew me to other people, and vulnerable and raw experiences have a beautiful way of doing that. But just the love that you showed and that a lot of other people showed during that time was really touching for me, and was a good reminder that, I'm not alone in the journey, and everybody has people that are looking out for them, whether they're relationships here or other people who've maybe moved on or whatever. But that was a really cool experience to be able to have as a 26-year-old. I feel like I'm pretty blessed that way, to be so young and to have such an enlightening sort of experience. And I would say my takeaways are applicable for everybody. I think I was telling you this, but I don't think the idea that if I'm still here, I still have some purpose, something to do, is just applicable for me. I feel like anybody who's alive, if you're still alive, then you have something to do, and who knows when our lives will end. But like what you were saying, if we look at death as kind of a time constraint, we only have a limited amount of time on life to find our meaning and do the best that we can to help other people, then everybody has things left to do. So thanks for asking and letting me share that story. Please join us for part 2 of this episode.